Okay, everybody, we're going to begin lesson 1.3 today on properties of real numbers. Our objective is to be able to, number one, identify these properties, understand what they are, and understand how they're used, and also be able to use them to help simplify some expressions. Okay, most of these you've had. There's kind of a review for you guys, but I would suggest you write all these down and have a list because you're going to want to use them as you're doing homework and you don't want to flip through this video the whole time. So I would write them down as you go. These are going to be very important and things, ideas that we will use over and over again. But the first thing we're going to talk about are properties of equality. So properties based on equal. All right. The first one is called the reflexive property. And basically what this says is anything, any quantity is equal to itself. So A is equal to A. No matter what number I put in A on the left, I'm going to put the same number in place of it on the right. So those are always equal. 3 equals 3, obviously. You can even make it an expression 9 plus 2 equals 9 plus 2. We know that's got to be a true statement. So any quantity equals itself. That's reflexive. Symmetric. What symmetric says is you can basically switch sides when you have an equality statement. So if one quantity equals the second, then the second equals the first. So, for example, if I told you that A equals B, you could switch it around using the symmetric property and say, well, B has to equal A also. If I said 7 equals 3 plus 4, you could interchange the sides and say, well, 3 plus 4 has got to equal 7. So it's really interchanging the sides, flipping the left and the right around. And then the transitive property, this comes in three statements. So if one quantity equals a second and a second equals the third, then the first has got to equal the third. So it looks something like this. If I told you A equals B and you know B equals C, then A's got to equal C. Okay. So if A equals B and this same value now equals a different value, so A equals B, B equals C, then A's got to equal C. So this is a little bit more complex version of it, but here's your two givens. 5 plus 1 equals 4 plus 2. And I know 4 plus 2 equals 6. Well, since 5 plus 1 is 4 plus 2 and 4 plus 2 is 6, then 5 plus 1's got to equal 6. That's an example of transitive also. Okay. Commutative and associative properties. I think you know these again already, but these apply to both addition and multiplication. They do not apply to subtraction or division. Commutative property. When you hear the word commutative property, I want you to think of the word order. The order in which two numbers are added or multiplied does not change their answer, their sum or their product. So if you add A plus B, that's the same thing as adding B plus A. And what you want to do is look from the left side of the equal to the right side of the equal. What's different? Well, the order's changed. Order is commutative. 8 plus 12 equals 12 plus 8. Again, look at the left side of the equal sign and the right side. What's different? We change the order. Same with multiplication. A times B is the same thing as B times A. 6 times negative 2 is the same thing as negative 2 times 6. So commutative is order. Associative now, this is grouping. So to use the associative property, you need three numbers at least because we got to be able to change the grouping. And if you change the grouping, you will not change the sum or the product. So for example, when you look at this example, on the left side, I got A plus B in parentheses, and then I'm going to add C. Well, this is the same thing if I take A and add to that the sum of B plus C. So what I want you to see as you look at this, on the left side, the parentheses around A and B, and then I got a C. On the right side, they're in the same order. It goes A, then B, then C. It was A, B, C on the left. So the order hasn't changed. What's changed is I put the parentheses around B plus C on the right. So what did we do? We didn't change the order. We changed the grouping. And in math, it doesn't, if I got three numbers added together, what this says is it doesn't matter which of the two you add first. When you add the third, you're getting the same answer. So here, 2 plus 9 plus 4 is the same thing as 2 plus 9 plus 4. That parentheses I should not have in there. But think about it. 2 plus 9 is 11. 11 plus 4 is 15. Over here, I got to do work in parentheses first. 9 plus 4 is 13. plus 2 is 15. It's the same answer. Now, this also holds true with multiplication. So if I had 3 times 6 and then that answer times 5, it would be the same as 3 times 6 times 5. Okay, so again, as you look left to right, it goes 3, 6, 5, 3, 6, 5. The difference is I've grouped the 3 and the 6 on the left, I've grouped the 6 and the 5 on the right. So I changed the grouping. And the same here. Did the same thing with variables. Order's the same. A, B, C on the left, A, B, C on the right. The difference is I grouped A and B on the left. I grouped B and C on the right. So commutative is order. Associative is grouping. Now we have some specific properties of addition. Okay. The first one is what we call the additive identity. And basically what we're saying is if you take any number or quantity and add 0 to it, it remains the same. That number or quantity remains the same. It keeps its identity. So A plus 0 is A. The left side, A plus 0. The right side is just A. So what did we do? Well, when we add 0, it doesn't change. 0 plus -7 equals -7. Yeah. When I add 0 to a quantity, that quantity keeps its identity. It stays the same. Okay. This is also an example of it. And this sometimes people will see this and think associative property quick, but I take the quantity 12 plus n and add 0. And on the right side, now I just have 12 plus n. Well, what happened? The quantity 12 plus n, when 0 is added to it, is still 12 plus n. So that's actually the additive identity. The additive inverse. Okay. So what you do with an additive inverse is it's anytime we add the opposite to a value, the answer to it is 0. So an example, A plus the opposite of A is going to equal 0. So these two will cancel each other out, become a 0. Okay. -19 plus 19. So a number plus its opposite always equals 0. All right. These are some questions you're going to get tonight for homework. So let's take a look. And the way I want you to do these, I want you to look at the left side of the equal sign and the right side and then say what's different. So the left side is 2 plus A. The right side is A plus 2. What changed? Well, what changed is the order. It was the 2 first, then the A. Now it's the A first and then the 2. So I changed the order, and order is commutative. This is a commutative property of addition because we're adding. How about this one? The left side is 5. The right side of the equal sign is 0 plus 5. Okay. So what's going on here? Well, that's the additive identity. 5 plus 0 is 5. So I added 0 to 5 and it kept its identity. It stayed as a 5. Here, opposite of x plus x is 0. Okay. So how do we add and get a 0? Well, you had to add opposites. And when you're adding opposites, that means you've added the additive inverse. Okay. So you're going to get questions like this tonight. Let's finish up some of our properties. Let's look at multiplication properties. So we got 3 of them here. So the first one's a multiplicative identity. It's the same concept as the additive identity. What can you multiply a number by and it keeps its identity? Well, it's 1. The product of any number and 1 equals the number. So A times 1 is A. -3 times 1, -3. The quantity x plus 4 times 1 is the quantity x plus 4. So that's the multiplicative identity, very similar to additive identity, but now obviously you're going to multiply by 1 to keep it the same. Multiplicative inverse. Any number that's multiplied by its inverse or reciprocal will always equal 1. So if I have the fraction a over b and I multiply it by b over a, the inverse of this, it will cancel out and the answer will be 1. If I had -6, remember a whole number is -6 over 1. So the inverse would be 1 over -6. If you cross cancel, your answer is going to be 1. Okay, so multiplicative inverse means to multiply by its reciprocal. Multiplication property of 0 basically says that anything multiplied by 0 equals 0. And this is actually a big concept that we're going to use a little later on. Right now, it's just a real simple property for us that if I take any number and multiply it by 0, the answer's got to be 0. Whether it's a variable, a negative, a positive, it doesn't matter. 0 times -2/5, the answer is 0. Okay. So you'll get questions like this tonight. Okay. Take a look at this. So the left side, the right side. The left side is six times the quantity for four times A. The right side is the quantity of six times four times A. So what changed? Well, the order stayed the same. It was 6 4A. It's 6 4A. What changed? The grouping. When you change the grouping, you use the associative property. Okay, here I multiplied C by 1 over C. So that's multiplying a number by its inverse, or a variable by its inverse. And whenever you multiply a number by its inverse, you get an answer of 1. That is the multiplicative inverse. Okay. And here, I guess I kind of snuck this in without going through it with you guys. Apologize. This is an example of, and I think you all know this already, this is what we use, or this is the distributive property. Okay. The distributive property is when you have multiplication over a quantity of addition or subtraction. So the multiplication, it's 2 times the quantity of D plus 5. All right. Whenever I have multiplication over addition, we can distribute, which means take that outside number, multiply by the inside number, and then take the outside number times the other inside number. So it would be 2 times D plus 2 times 5. I'm sure you've all distributed already. So this would be an example of the distributive property. Didn't get a chance to go through it with you, but there it is. Okay. I think you know it. Now, one last style of question you're going to get is to take uh, this simplification process and justify each step with one of the properties that you just learned. So they're saying they're taking the quantity of 6 plus 5 times quantity of 4 plus y and simplify it and then explain how you did it. All right. So if you look at step one, that's the given expression. How do we go from step one to step two? Well, what's different? What's different is they've taken this 5 and multiplied it by 4 plus 5 times y. We just talked about that one. That is the distributive property. Now, going from line 2 to line 3, what's different? Well, the difference is I took this 6 plus 20 and I added those two together. We just say we simplified or combined like terms. Either one's fine. And then the last step, I went from 26 plus 5y to 5y plus 26. What's different from here to here? Well, hopefully you all said it's the order in which I wrote them. And what is order? Commutative property of addition. And then we're done. So we used our basic property. So anytime you simplify, you may not know it, but that's what you're doing. You're using these properties to get from the beginning to the end, and they're all equal statements. Okay. So that takes us through the properties of real numbers. I suggest again that you write all these down so you have them in front of you so you can be sure you know them and can use them and have quick access to them. All right. I'll let you get to homework.